everybody to this Horse Tribe An Evening with Jonty Evans, the Ride to Recovery. I haven't even had a gin, I promise. The Ride to Recovery. So we've been delighted to get to know Jonty, and we know a little bit about his journey, and tonight he's going to tell you even more about it. He's an incredible individual, and you're going to feel this tonight as he runs through the experiences that he's been through and gives you his pearls of wisdom on his journey through some very difficult times and the special horse art that came along with him. So I'm not going to steal any of his thunder. We're going to hand over very shortly to Jonty. But first of all, we have a little bit of a tech check with Heidi.
Yeah, just quickly. Thank you for popping where you are in the chat function. As we go on, if you want to ask questions, and just can you use the Q&A area, which is at the bottom of your screen, hopefully. So just pop questions in the Q&A, because that's where we're going to look to find them. So and feel free to add them as you go, anything that comes to mind, and then Jonty will take questions right at the end. Obviously, we're recording the webinar so we can play it back and have it on the website. So that should be up and running by Saturday at the latest. So you'll be able to come back and listen again. And if you want to move the size of Jonty versus the side of the slide, you can just move the grey bar left and right. And one last thing, right at the end of today, there'll be a short questionnaire. Just if you could fill that in for us, it really helps us with our webinars and gives us some ideas for future topics as well. So I think that's all the background. That's the boring bit. We're going to hand over to Jonty, and he's going to tell us his story.
And we'll
Thanks,
see you
Jonty.
Thank you very much, girl. Hello, everybody. I'm Jonty Evans, and I'm reliably told tonight it's. Do you remember that? Do you remember years ago they used to have scratch and sniff cards? So I'm reliably told that this screen now is scratch and sniff. So I put my aftershave on. So I'm Jonty Evans, obviously, and I've had a very hard time deciding whether I still call myself an event rider. But anyway, I ride event horses, or I have done. And so I decided that tonight we should go through a few things. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the early days, my early days, that is. Then we're going to move on to kind of career highlights and the development of my career. And then we will touch on the accident, obviously. And then we will work through some of the rehab that's been involved, where we are now. And then we'll have a moment at the end for questions, which hopefully you'll have some questions. And don't feel, you don't need to be sensitive. You don't need to be precious. I'm not precious about it. I just won't answer anything I don't want to. So you can ask what you like. A little bit about my early days, my kind of the beginning of my horsey life, where it all came from, as it were. So I grew up in North Wales, right in the mountains, not far from Snowdon. You literally, there was not a flat field. And so our show jump training, for example, was over Forest Commission gates on hardcore roads. And so I learnt to ride on Rosie and Posy. So we had two little Welsh mountain ponies, and one reared you off and one bucked you off. I can't actually quite remember which was which. But anyway, Rosie and Posy were significant. You learnt to stay on, and you learnt to stay on going up and down the hills. And we were very lucky. We had basically an idyllic childhood. And we had great fun. We had pony club camps, and we had a big occasion in our pony club was annually we used to have a 50-mile endurance ride. And by this point we're a little bit older. We had a horse called Sinbad, and Sinbad was Arab and Welsh cob, I think. And anyway, he was he won the Muffy ride, it was called, and he won that 3 times. I think it's 3 times. and little things like that. But, you know, basically we had a really fantastic childhood, and we had a really fantastic penny club. And Rosie and Posey played a big part of it, as long as you could stay on. Gradually, this kind of gave way to moving towards doing more with maybe eventing. I gradually started to, I came to the end of school time. I stayed at school as long as to do A-levels, and then I left school, and I got a job. I worked for various people, people like Tuffy Tilly, and I went to work for her in the summer holidays, and I worked in Liverpool for Adrian Hallam, and basically I did lots of things that gave me experience. So the route I was following was very much the kind of working people type route, and it was kind of work for various people in order to get experience and move your ideas and career forward. So I ended up in Yorkshire, working for a guy called Chris McGran, or working with a guy called Chris McGran. I actually worked for a lady called Fiona Clegg. And I worked kind of involved with Chris, who did a lot. I think he was chief instructor for the Penny Club at the time. I did my Penny Club A test and various things like that. And so at the time, I met a very good friend called Jo Lees, who I'll refer to later. She's still a good friend now. And a lady called Jeanette Breakwell, who probably you've heard of. And I broke in a horse called Over to You, Over to You being Jack. And Jack then Jeanette bought Jack, or someone bought Jack for Jeanette, and the rest is history, as it were. So I moved on. I did various other jobs. I worked for John Thirlwall, and I also I ended up staying with Trish Gardner for a while. And obviously Trish was dressage, and Jo Lees was also at Trish's at that point. And one day I went to groom for Trish's daughter Claire at Alden Horse Trials. And so I walked around the horse trials and I thought, right, I need a job. I've got to go and work somewhere. So I walked around the horse trials and thought, who shall I ask for a job? So anyway, I came across Andrew Nicholson, and walked up to his lorry and thought, right, I'll ask him. So I asked Andrew if he got a job going. And Andrew asked me to ride a horse there and then, around the collecting ring. And I had to canter around on it. And anyway, he asked me if I'd go down for an interview the next day. So I duly did. And I duly got the job. So I worked for Andrew for a while. And ultimately it had come to, I'd kind of learnt through my career, and I'd come of an age whereby I felt that it was probably time for me to branch out on my own. So I decided to rent a yard near Cirencester, a place called Barnsley Park. And so then that started my kind of solo career, as it were. And this kind of led to me getting horses and various things like that. And most of my riding at that point was dealing with naughty horses for their owners. So a horse that wasn't going out hunting, wasn't jumping, wasn't behaving, or a horse that wouldn't do what it was told, or a horse that bucked people off. And so I got all these horses to ride, to kind of correct and put right. So we had various things like that. And then gradually we started filtering out some quite nice ones. and so gradually the kind of yard built, and I had lots of teaching from the pony club locally, so that went quite well as well. So gradually we started to build a kind of reputation, and you know, one thing led to another, as it were. And so if we, sorry, I can't, Heidi, if we could go on to the next slide, please. Oh, that works then. So my career highlights, if you like, as my career started to build and take off. I represented Ireland at the European Championships in 2005 at Blenheim, but I'd actually also been to the 2003 European Championships at Punchestown, which was a really big thing, but that's not on that list. Then I came across a wonderful horse. Actually, I tell a lie, sorry. I came across a wonderful horse before the Europeans called Craig Warrior, owned by Deborah Martin-Duguid. And Craig Warrior was unbelievable in terms of the amount he would give you. And that's really made was a big thing for me, because I always felt that if I worked hard, I could expect the horse to work hard. And he really gave it me back in spades, in bucketfuls. And he was the horse I rode at my first badminton. I'll tell you a little story about badminton, that first badminton. I rode there in 2007, and I had had a fall the weekend before from a horse and damaged my hip. And when I set off cross country at badminton, I had a painkilling injection, which we're allowed to have then. I don't know if you still are. And so I set off cross country, and you know, all was going well, and he was jumping well, really taking it on as he did. And we jumped through the coffin and turned to go through the jump the Outlander bank, and we were stopped. And anyway, we'd been stopped because a horse had an accident at a fence further on at Vicarage V. And so we were held for nearly 40 minutes, which is a blooming long time. So we were held on course, and they kept asking me, did I want to retire? Did I want to give up? And I said, God almighty, it's taken me 20 years to get here. I'm not giving up now. And so I stuck to my guns. And anyway, they asked me to warm up, and I was ready to go again. This was a long time afterwards. So I gave him a right slap on behind the saddle and said, right, come on, mate, we've got to go now. And I remember Ian Stark was commentating, Ian Stark and Mike Tucker. And the next fence was the Oxer over the bottom of the Vicarage ditch, and it was a huge fence. So I really gave him a slap behind the saddle, right, come on, let's get on with it. And Ian actually said on commentary, God, he went on a big stride there. And I thought, of all the people to tell me you've gone on a big stride was Ian Stark. Anyway, we completed the course clear, and I came to the finish flags, and blessed Mike Tucker said at the end, he said, I think he's hit his knee on the flag in Huntsman's Close because he's sore now. Anyway, I couldn't walk because obviously the painkiller injection had worn off my leg, and so my hip was absolutely killing me, so I had to get some help. Anyway, that's one thing. That's the story. So anyway, the career highlights go on. Obviously, in 2015 was the first big thing with art, if you like. He was a member of the winning team at the European Championships at the Military Buccleuch. Then in 2016, we were ninth at the Rio Olympics. And we'll talk a bit more about the crowdfunding as we go on to keep him in 2017. But that's kind of brief overview, if you like, of my career, very brief. And so let's go on to the next slide, please, Heidi. Oh, sorry. I told them I'd mess this up. Sorry, these are some of the other slides. So the badminton horse trials, which is, that to me means everything. The iconicness, if that is a word, I'm sure it's not, of having Badminton House in the background and jumping into the lake at Badminton. That picture is just everything to me. When I was a child growing up, I remember going on boyhood, trips to Badminton with my mum, and to actually get to ride there is something just off the scale. Can we go on to the next one, please? So this is a video, and obviously it's very well documented that Art was very good at Rio, and he actually was one of only 3 horses jump triple clear, so clear cross country and 2 clears show jumping. The others were Le Biscadec Sam that won the gold medal, and Paul Brocker that was such a place with Sam Griffiths, and then Art. So that was something very, very special. Can you play that? Oh. So notice that on that video then, they planted the scoreboard, and I'm in the lead, not for very long, but I'm in the lead Olympic Games. And the person you could see on the slide then was my mum, Arthur, my stepfather, and also my sister. We've long teased my sister that she's quite loud and we can always hear her. And I'm sure you could hear it then in the video. Anyway, I don't know if you're listening, Hannah, but it's great having you all there. Sorry, can we go on to the next one, please? Now, one of the biggest things for me was winning the Grantham Cup at Belton Horse Trials. Now, the Grantham Cup is not held at Belton anymore because Belton's is now defunct. But when I worked for John Thelwell, I worked up the road from Belton, just outside Grantham, and to win that class was absolutely sensational, because I'd been to Belton both as a groom, as a rider, a lot. I loved Belton, and we got there on the day, and Art did a very good test, as was his way. And I thought, blimey, that was quite smart. I don't know if he's in the lead, but he's in the first few. And then he jumped around the show jumping and jumped this customary clear round. And by this point, we were in the lead. And it was very, very special. And I had to focus, obviously, on to make sure I jumped around properly. He jumped round, he jumped really well. He jumped into the water really well, which is quite tricky at Belton. And he came towards the coffin, which again is quite tricky. And he came towards the coffin and he jumped to the coffin beautifully, excuse me. And just past the coffin on the right-hand side, there's a commentary box. And a great friend of mine, Henry Symington, was commentating. And I just looked up at the commentary box and just waggled my finger at him, because I just knew that Art was going to do it. And he cantered around and finished inside the time, and won the class. And I can't tell you how special that was to win that. To win that class, my first big international win, if you like, and to win it on such a special horse, really means so much, and still does. So can we go on, please? And so obviously my career highlights include the crowdfunding for Art, which was a particularly stressful time, a particularly difficult time, but a particularly rewarding time. And so a little bit of background. So I had racked my brains for every way I could think of to buy art. I knew he had to be sold. They had told me, Fiona, who owned him at the time, had told me he had to be sold. And they said they had an offer from America for a lot of money. And so I knew how much money I had to try and raise from the get-go. And raising that privately was obviously very, very hard. And so the kind of long and short of it was, I went for a drink with a friend called Kodge. And Kodge, Andrew Kojima, give him his full name, sorry, had been on MasterChef, and he had been a finalist on MasterChef. I think he finished second, actually. And Kodge had crowdfunded to raise enough money to open a restaurant in Cheltenham. And he'd done it successfully. He'd raised 50,000, I think. And so I went for a drink with him, and I thought, crikey, maybe I have to give this a go. And so I decided that I'd got nothing to lose. I was sat at the kitchen table one day, and I thought to myself, there is no way that horse is getting up that drive in someone else's lorry if I haven't tried absolutely everything. So I decided I'd have to try it. I suppose the difference was that I had to raise £550,000, not £50,000. And so we embarked on our crowdfunding journey. And the response to it was off the scale, really. There was private investment, and then we had to raise, I think we had to raise, I think it was 300 grand on top of that to enable us to buy him. And we did that. And I still can't get over it. I can't believe now that it actually happened. There were people who gave 50p. There were people who gave 100,000. You know, there were people who gave what they could, and it meant so much. And I used to come in and look at the computer and see where we were, and it went very well for a while, then it quietened down, and then it seemed to pick up again. And it was a very stressful time, a difficult time, but knowing you cross the line and walking down, I used to have the where we lived was down the hill, and the yard was at the hill at the bottom on the right. And I walked down the hill and walked into the yard, and Art was in the first stable on the right. And I just looked at him and I said to him, "You haven't got to go anywhere, mate." And I cried my eyes out. And to know that he could stay was literally on another level completely. The stress of the situation meant that or the difficulty in achieving what we did, which is I can't really put into words what we achieved. It meant that going to the Europeans, which was that autumn, was too difficult. It was too stressful. So we decided we'd pull away. And so the next big thing was the World Equestrian Games. Beg your pardon, I think it was badminton in between, and then there was the World Equestrian Games. And so the aim became that. And in the meantime, we won the Grantham Cup. And so we went to Tatsal's, which was the next event, which was the final trial. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So unfortunately, then this happened. So the fall doesn't need too much description really for all of you, I'm sure. But briefly, I was in the lead. It was the final trial for the World Equestrian Games. It was held at Tatzel's. I'd done the best dressage and clear show jumping, and I set off and he was in the lead. And he was going really well. And I was 3 fences from home. And Sally Corskadden, who was, still is, our performance manager at the time, turned to Vina Buller, one of the selectors, and said, well, that's Jonty on the plane, isn't it? And then I had to fall. And I think I've said I was 3 fences from home. I don't remember anything about it. And I could, I tried really hard to remember beforehand, after I woke up from the coma, but I couldn't remember any closer than about 50, 60 yards from the fence. I just remember going across that field, and then don't remember anything else. Obviously, I was treated on site, and actually I was put into an induced coma, which you do with the drug to protect your brain. But then when they withdrew that drug, 4 or 5 days later, I think, I didn't come round, and I stayed in a coma for the best part of 7 weeks. I was at the Connolly Hospital in Dublin. And so began a long period of rehab, as it were. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So this is a video from my 2nd or 3rd day. These 2 ladies were the physios, and this was a video from the 2nd or 3rd day, sorry, of my rehab, and this is me starting to walk again.
When you put your right foot down, try and shift the weight more to the right side. Good. Across hand Jonty and slowly step with the left. Good. Right foot down again. And up. Take your time. Good. Try and bring the hips forward a little bit, Jonty. You feeling okay?
So, a difficult video to watch every now and again, but that's my. I got a catheter in, by the way, so that's my wee bag strapped to my knee, nothing dodgy. So that was some of the period at the Connolly Hospital in Dublin. My mum never left my side for all the time I was in the coma. She stayed in Ireland. She stayed with Kieran and Emily Glynn, who put my stepfather up whenever he came over as well as my friend Mike. Mike used to come over at weekends quite often, and my sister Hannah. And Mike would push me around, take me for a walk around Phoenix Park in Dublin, in the wheelchair, and I'd make Mike stop, and so Mike would stop the wheelchair and I'd stand up, and then he'd go on again. I'd sit down obviously, and he'd go on again, and I'd get him to stop again, but I had to stop out of view of the nurses because they didn't like me standing up. And so every time we came back from our walk, Mike or my mum would push the wheelchair to near the bed, and I would stay in the wheelchair, and then the nurses would come along and get me into sling and sling me back into the bed, winch me up and move me across. So the only thing is that I already knew I could stand up, whereas the nurses didn't. So I had, one day, the nurses seemed to leave me waiting for far too long, which really annoyed me. So they parked the wheelchair near the bed, so I stood up, and you should have seen them run. I didn't like that at all, but that was great fun. Anyway, then gradually my time at the Connolly, my sister worked very hard, by the way, and got me into a place called Sid Watkins Centre at the Walton Hospital in Merseyside. And so we moved from Ireland back to England. If we move the next slide along, please. So this is, if you play that while I'm talking, please. This is at the Walton Centre, and we discovered a play park, kids' play park. And so I discovered there was a fence around it. So I used to make Arthur, my stepfather, or my mum push me down there in the wheelchair, so I wasn't allowed to walk that far, or any aided or anything. But then I could walk there's a wheelchair. I could walk around the fence, holding onto the fence. So I used to do laps. I used to go, that's me going past the gate, can't go past the gate without holding on. So I have to hold on to the gate, then get going again. So I used to do several laps, that's my mum, several laps one way and then several laps the other way. Always even, you mustn't trot one way only, must trot both ways. So I did, I started doing 2 laps each way, and then I got up doing 7 or 8, I think. And, gradually I felt my walking was getting, stronger and stronger. So the Sid Watkins Centre was a big part of my recovery. They did a huge amount for me. There was an unbelievable emphasis on all things you needed, such as physio, such as speech therapy. All these things were really paid attention to. And then I suppose the next thing was I decided I wanted to go, I didn't decide I wanted to go to, but the next part of my recovery or rehab, if you like, was for me to go to the Oaksey House. Oaksey House is in Lambourne, and is run by the Injured Jockeys Fund. And again, each time I moved, it was like I was going up a level, or along a level. And so I'd gone from the Connolly to the Walton Centre, or Sid Watkins Centre, and then I'd gone from there to the Lambourne, to Oaksey House. And each time I could go further, I could push more. So Oaksey House, we did swimming. I wanted to be able to play football with my son, which I still can't do very well, never could really. But I used to kick a ball a lot. I played ping pong a lot because it's very good for your reactions. And various things like that. And as many of you will know, the emphasis again that they put on the ability to rehab, to push yourself, to go in the gym. We had endless sessions in the gym. So ultimately my aim was to be able to ride again, to be able to run again, to be able to play football in the sun, various things like that. I suppose let's play the next slide, please.
Jonty Evans was an eventer competing at the very top of his game when he had a horrific riding accident just over a year ago. In fact, it's only just over a year since he came out of a 6-week coma. He suffered horrific brain injuries, but he's out there on the course today. Running, he's determined not to walk, running this half marathon, raising awareness and funds for 3 very important charities.
It wasn't really a dream. I was just going to do it. I was going to become an event rider, and that was how it was. I used to watch badminton horse trials, and that to me was always the pinnacle. You feel as one with the horse. You don't feel like a horse and rider. You feel definitely as one.
Well, now Jonty Evans, and he really has done Ireland proud.
Going to Olympics was, I can't even put it into words. It's ridiculous how amazing it was, the whole experience. And then achieving what we achieved in Rio was, I mean, incredible. It was the final trial for the World Equestrian Games in Florida. And I was 3 fences from home. I don't remember anything about the fall. I hit my head on the ground. I ended up with a diffuse traumatic brain injury, apparently is the correct term. And I was in a coma for just under 7 weeks. The prognosis was not good. My parents were told to expect the worst. And my mum was incredibly positive. She just kept saying, "You don't know, Jonty, you know, this is not going to end like this." And the waking up process was very gradual. I imagined straight away that as soon as I could, that I'd be back on the horse the next day, and then nothing would kind of move. And I thought, well, maybe that's why. It's not like a broken leg that you know will mend. It's much more than that. It's hard to actually put your belief behind something and kind of drive it forward, and that's been quite hard. So I had to learn to talk again, walk again. I literally couldn't get out of the bed. If one day you can't pick up a pen, and then the next day you can, then that's massive improvement. I was very lucky because after 6 months I rode again, and I rode a horse called July, and it was great. It felt normal to me. I'm taking part in the Great North Run because I'm running for Headway, Alzheimer's UK, and the David Foster Injured Riders Fund. The motivation behind running is definitely to try and give something back. A lot of people helped me enormously, and I want to try and help others if I can. I've got a mind about what time I'd like, but I'm not going to go into that too much. I just like to keep running. When you can look back on a particularly bad time and look at the support you had from people and knowing that they were very positive during that time is a huge, huge thing. And that has really helped.
What a remarkable story of perseverance, and Jonty Evans is out there on the course. I'm sure his story will have resonated and touched so many people. The human spirit is a powerful, powerful thing to harness, isn't it? And crossing the finish line at the moment, the runners are coming in at just about 2 hours and 40, which is not hanging around. It's a pretty decent time. They're all looking fairly happy and smiling, and Jeanette no doubt has caught up with another interesting character.
Thank you. Anyone who noticed then, as Gabby Logan was talking, the time clock was on 2 hours 37 minutes. I'd already finished. I finished in 2 hours 26 minutes. So my aim was always to run all the way and not to walk, and to finish under 2 hours 30. So Catherine Nankervis, who's a lecturer at Hartbury, a professor, I think, and Mike the Knight, my friend Mike, who came to Ireland with me a lot, ran the Great North Run with me, and Catherine was pacemaker and Mike was my bodyguard. So Mike fended people off and Catherine made sure we kept running at the right speed. And so we finished it in 2 hours, 26 minutes. And so that is something I'm ridiculously proud of. I'm going to stay that way. So a few little things before I go on to where we are now. Just a quick mention of July is the horse I first rode when I was getting back onto a horse. And we chose July because July was short and wide. And so I was probably less likely to topple off. And if I did, it wasn't very far. And July had been involved in the RDA beforehand. So July was well versed in this. And then one day I was riding out on July and I thought, bloody hell, so this one doesn't go fast enough. And so I came back and I got an art and I rode out an art. And that was the first day I'd ridden art again. And that, I can't tell you what that meant. So to be able to ride him again was huge. And then I also would like to say something about the people who've helped me. When I woke up from the coma, my sister told me about the Wear Green for Jonty campaign. And she and my mum struggled to make me believe it. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that there were people wearing green, walking around with armbands and t-shirts and so on and raising money. I just couldn't believe it. And it took a very long time to get that across to me and for me to believe it. And I can't begin to thank everyone who helped and supported so much. My mum, my sister, obviously, my friend Dan, my friend Mike, and I've mentioned her before, but I have a great friend called Jolise who does a huge amount for me. She's a very good dressage trainer. Some of you may have come across her. She's done a huge amount, is doing a huge amount, helps me with art, helps me on the flat with art. It has even been known to move jump poles, which isn't something she's ever that comfortable doing. But all in all, the people who've helped me are too numerous to mention. And it's been a real eye-opener that there are people who will put themselves out to help me. And I can't thank everyone enough. So where we are now, I'm riding art. I love riding art. I've got a lovely, lovely 4-year-old called Malone. And I'm going to go on record as saying he's one of the nicest 3 horses I've ever had. Obviously, the nicest is Art. And Malone is one of the nicest 3 horses I've ever had in my whole career. He's absolutely gorgeous. He's got a lovely, lovely step. He's got a lovely canter. He's got a lovely jump. He's got a lovely temperament. So, you know, he's got it all. The rest is down to me. We're working away with both of them. We're trying to improve. The emphasis is always on improvement and always on moving everything forward. And so if you could play this video, please, Heidi. This is just a video of me jumping a while back at the local venue for speed.
If riders can please be aware, the indoor arena is now closing for warm-up. If you need to warm up before going into the shortlisted warm-up, the rear field on the right-hand side of the lorry parking is open for warm-up. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's just a little video of me jumping around on art. And so I suppose one of the key takeaways, if you like, or the key messages I want to get across comes from when I was at school. I went to school at St David's College in North Wales, and my headmaster was a guy called John Mayer. And it was a boys' school at the time. And one morning we had assembly. Had assembly every morning, like most schools do. And they were, I can't remember, 300 or 400 boys in the school. And we were all in the assembly room. And John Mayer walked out onto the stage to give the address. And he walked out, and he wasn't a tall man, but he had massive kind of presence. And he stood at the lectern, and he put both hands out on the side of the lectern in front of him. And he kind of held everyone's attention, and everyone was paused and bated breath. And he said, "Never." And then he waited, and there was nothing. There was complete silence. And it's like all the boys were thinking, well, and they said, "Never." And then there was another silence, and he just, everyone was like holding their breath. And it was then, no, sorry, it was a little bit after that I realized that it's about the delivery, not the message so much, but the delivery. And his delivery that day was amazing. And it's never, ever gone away from me. So the next never came. Ever. And then the next one eventually came. And that message has stuck with me through everything. And I can honestly say I never will. I might not be able to ride as well as I could. I might have to work harder at various things. I might have to try harder, but I will never, ever give up. Never.
Thank you, Jonty. What a fabulous message.
Incredible message. What a fabulous message, and a fabulous story. And it's incredible that it's stuck with you for so long. And we can hear that grit and determination.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, folks, if you hit the Q&A, ask questions. And as Jonty said, he's happy for you to ask any questions, you know, no matter, well, like he said, if he really doesn't want to, he won't. But give it a try. Ask those questions and we'll pass those on. And while you're typing, I've got a couple of questions. We asked for questions beforehand on our social media. So I have got a few questions while people are typing. I'll give you one to start with.
Okay.
So this one came right quite early on. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm curious. You grew up in Wales, but you rode for Ireland. What's the Irish connection? It's a good question. I wonder.
My father's family came from Northern Ireland. So my grandfather was Irish, but moved to England. And so that was where the connection came from.
Ah, gotcha. Brilliant. Question here. I find it easier to dwell on the negatives than the positives in my riding. For example, I did some online tests last month and I was disappointed in the scores, sulked for a day, looked again, and they were actually the best scores I've ever had. How do you stay so positive, Jonty?
Everyone, absolutely everybody has their down, okay? And so whether it's a minute, whether it's a day, whether it's a month, try and keep it under control, try and shorten it, but everybody has their down. So the most positive person in the world has their down. It might only last 5 minutes, it might last 5 hours, but you possibly, I'm no psychologist by the way, but you possibly have to give yourself that moment. So maybe liken it to go in a dark room, shut the door, shut the windows, beat the hell out of the sofa. be cross. That's fine. That's allowable. Then get over it and move on. And so I would say that having your moments whereby you beat your, I don't know, teddy bear up, or something. I've got to be careful what I say now, but obviously you beat something inanimate up, and you take it out on the sofa, or you take it, you shout and scream if you need to, but go into a dark room or go to the top of a hill or something, and you do what you need to, and then you're over it. And I've always found that it's better to do that and then flick a switch and then get on with life, get on with what you're doing. And I've also always found the horses are my savior. As in, when I had a yard full of horses, I would regularly go and ride the horse. And that, I know that I'm going to take it on the horse. I know that I can ride the horse nicely, so I can go and focus on what he's given me. And that's my me time with the horse. And it gives me, that's almost my psychologist.
Oh, fantastic. What a great psychologist. Another question here, Jonty. You talk about the emphasis is always moving forward. Have you always used that throughout your career?
No, not my career, my life. So I don't know where I get it from. I'd hazard a guess it's my grandfather, my mum's father. I don't know though. I've just always wanted to think of the next thing. There are people who say I'm impatient, which maybe I am, but I would always be thinking of the next thing. So I would hardly ever take time to appreciate something, which is maybe a downside, but I'd always be thinking of, let's go on to the next thing and make it better.
Brilliant. Fantastic positivity. Part question, part comment. Did you do as much coaching before your accident? And if not, how are you finding it doing so much? That's the first part. I'll let you answer that first.
I did lots of coaching. I didn't have time to go off as much as I'm doing more so now, where I would go and do a clinic for a day, for example. I didn't have as much time to just do that because I was eventing a lot more. So I did do a lot of teaching. I used to teach nearly every day, individual lessons and so on. But I love the teaching. I've always loved the teaching. I love it.
Fantastic. I think this quite, it's Kai. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. C-A-I.
Yeah, I know Kai.
Yeah, so messages. I thought you'd be a good person for clinic sessions because you'd understand my PTSD issue, though mine is not actually horse related, and I wasn't wrong. I've got so much out of the bits I've managed to access this summer. Thank you.
Oh, that's very nice, sir. Very nice.
And another question here from Sharon. Jonty, what do you do to keep fit now?
I do 60 press-ups every morning. Not press-ups, sorry, sit-ups. I was going to gym a lot at Hartbury, which has now stopped. I go running, not very well, but I do go running. You haven't seen the last of me on a half marathon line, by the way, start line. I will be doing that again, and I will make Mike go again. My friend, I don't know if he's listening, but he won't like the sound of that. And if you are listening by any chance, Mike, I think we need to put 2 half marathons together one day and do a whole one.
Oh, that's it. You heard it here first.
It's exclusive, I think, isn't it?
Fantastic. Thanks, Jonty. Right. Another question, I guess, about your positivity and how your life's changed. So I can imagine that this experience has impacted how you look at the world and what you want from the next chapters of your life. How has it changed how you live your life and make decisions now?
Gosh, that's very in-depth. Dare I say it, but my children are probably far more to the fore of my thinking. And I want to do more for them, which I wonder if that's that's been an impact of it. On a similar line, I love the teaching element of it, and so what I really like is helping other people overcome things or improve things, because that to me again is whether it be youngsters or whether it be somebody, age is irrelevant really, but whether it be somebody who wants to get on with something, be able to do something, and then be able to move their career or their abilities forward. I think probably, I don't know whether the accident has done that or whether the change of emphasis in what I do has done that, which I suppose is indirectly the accident, because I've probably got a much more awareness of people, how people are riding and how people are grasping it and how people are improving, hopefully.
Brilliant. And which discipline do you enjoy the most and which do you enjoy teaching the most? So riding and teaching.
Teaching, I enjoy teaching the show jumping most. The cross country is easy to teach. The dressage I don't enjoy as much to teach, although it massively depends on your pupil, massively. In terms of riding, I've been asked that a lot, as in, you know, which discipline do you enjoy riding the most? I don't. All three are the same. I have loved all three and I still do.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Another confidence question. So I struggle with self-belief and confidence in my riding, although I'm told I ride better than I think. What tips do you have to help with a lack of self-confidence? Brackets, I'm a bit older, 55. That's not old at all.
Exactly. So tips. I would say that absolutely banished from everything is anything derogatory about yourself. So sorry, what do I call it? The asker, the person with the question, is not allowed ever to say anything derogatory about her riding. So you don't say I can't do this, you say I'm learning to do this, and little things like that. And so if you are really strict with that and you stick to that, you can start to see a difference. You can start to see it filter through. I'm not as good now. Jo will be laughing because I know she's listening. She'll be laughing now because I have struggled. I can't tell everybody how much this accident has affected confidence for me. It has, my confidence has absolutely crashed beyond belief. And so that is a very real issue in terms of you must not degrade yourself, put yourself down, because if you're doing it, your brain will be thinking everyone else is doing it. So you haven't got to big yourself up, but you've got to not put yourself down. That's a given. And that would probably include your horse, for example. Be realistic about them, but don't be nasty about them. That is probably the main one.
Brilliant. That's fabulous advice. Thank you. Olympic question now. We've read a lot recently about the horses and athletes travelling to Japan for the Olympics. What was it like for you and Art travelling to compete so far? I always wonder what it's like to put your horse on a plane and wow.
From the moment whereby we knew that the Olympics were in Rio, obviously, and from the moment whereby I knew Art was in contention, or even before that, I absolutely knew that there would be no trouble for Art. Art is the most sensational traveller. He just gets on the lorry and goes, and there's no more thought about it. Art has supreme confidence in himself. He's not cocky, he's not nasty, but no way does he doubt anything. Art does not do doubt. That does not enter his head. And so I always knew that obviously to choose 4 horses to go was the selectors were going to have the work cut out because of the travel. And it was a 12-hour flight. And so I don't know how long Tokyo was, but to Rio it was a 12-hour flight. And so I always knew that massive in this would be horses traveling and the effect it might have. I can honestly say I was probably lucky in that I had no worries at all. I knew he'd be fine. And I had supreme trust in Hugh Suffren, who was our traveling vet and traveled with the horses. He even opened the horses travel on a plane in a crate, which is a bit like an Ivor Williams trailer with no wheels. It's that kind of shape. And so it has doors on the front. And so Hugh opened the doors of our horses' trailers so they could eat the haylage off the floor, because one of the big issues with horses traveling like that is their neck being up. And so mucus flowing back down their trachea into their lungs, and so them getting infections that way. So he put the haylage on the floor, opened the doors and put the haylage on the floor so they ate off the floor. So the horses obviously honestly arrived like they'd not travelled anywhere.
Amazing.
All the horses were really good.
That's incredible, isn't it?
And so,
but I suppose they don't know they're in the air, do they?
Exactly. Yeah, if they got out and looked, then they might be worried. But in terms of travelling there, for me, I don't remember it so much. I remember travelling back. But I don't know. I suppose because to me that was where it was, or that was always where it was. It didn't kind of really enter the equation.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you.
And I was very lucky with art.
Somebody else looking for some confidence tips. So writing, I'm too much of a coward to try to canter, too afraid of losing control of the horse and my body. What should I do?
Work out whether that's likely. So obviously I can't suggest someone does something that might happen, but is the horse known to do that? Maybe watch somebody else canter it. If it does it really nicely with someone else, then think about, okay, then think about canter. You get on the horse, the person asking, sorry, gets on a horse that she knows will canter like a dobbin and canter around on it, and then put the two together. So if you know that you're fine on the dobbin and you know that your horse is fine with someone else, then maybe put the two together. And so you're not putting the two together initially, but you're making sure they can do it on their own, and then you're putting the two together.
Yeah.
I would think about trying that. But also it goes back to that idea of not talking yourself down. Okay, so she mustn't talk herself down. She must just go and canter another horse and say, this is part of your preparation, and justify it in your head that way. And then someone else canter your horse and justify it in your head that way. So you're building the whole issue up. Yeah.
We're creating the journey, as you said before. Everything's gradually moving forward, but no need for big jumps.
Exactly.
I was just thinking, Jonty, as well, there are there seem to be many more, I'm trying to think of the word for them, fake horses. What do I mean? Simulated.
Yeah, exactly.
That can go to a very high level with Grand Prix dressage moves. So I guess two things. One is, I guess, that could be a suggestion to start on even before a dobbin. And secondly, I just wondered, actually, did you use any simulated horses in your rehabilitation?
Yes. Yes, Hartbury College have got a horse simulator, and Liz Launder works at Hartbury and has done I've done a huge amount with Liz, and we did a lot with it on the horse simulator, cantering, jumping, all sorts of things. And it's not quite like a horse, but it is quite genuine.
Yeah.
You feel thrown about, you feel bounced around. So that's a very good idea. I'd also chuck that in.
Yeah, I didn't realise you could jump on a horse simulator. So
Yeah, cross country and also
Oh, wow.
cross country, yeah, and drops.
Okay.
Ah,
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Another question here from Jack. I've been working hard and learning all 3 disciplines for eventing. How do you know when you're ready to head out to a competition? And how do you know, and how do you put it all together? Sorry, I didn't read that very well.
How old? Sorry, did you say Jack?
Yes.
JAC. Yeah.
JAC. Yeah.
Sorry?
JAC.
Do you know how old he is? He or she?
Yeah.
Not sure. If it, Jack, you pop down what your age, if you dare.
Okay.
Oh, it's Monty, it's me, Julianne.
Oh, I thought it was her. I wanted it was her.
Oh yes, Julianne. Yes, JAC. Sorry, Julianne.
Okay. So basically, you don't know if you're ready. Okay. There comes a point in everything where you have to take a leap of faith. Now, if you are in Julianne's situation, she's got people helping her who know about the flat work. She's got people helping her know about jumping and the cross country. So I know that because it's me. And Joe. So there will come a point where she has to take a leap of faith. And so you have to say, right, I'm going to go for it now. You've got to take advice, obviously, that you are as ready as you can be in all 3 disciplines, but ultimately you've got to take a leap of faith and have a go.
Just go and do it. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you very much. I've got one one other fun question to answer before we finish. Which eventers are the most fun at events? You must have some stories about parties you can share. Cool.
Not me, I'm too old.
Never too old to party.
That's true.
I'll tell you who's great fun is Gemma Tussell. Great fun. And Laura Collett's very good fun. Sorry, not many stories.
No problem at all.
You're a gentleman.
Actually, there is one more, Jonty, that does link to people as well. So eventing, especially such a high level, takes a lot of personal effort, but also that of also a lot of good people around you. Who would you say has been most influential and supportive in your career?
Oh my God. I wouldn't put it down to one person, really. I've got a slightly dodgy answer in that I would say the horses.
Oh, amazing.
Not dodgy, but without doubt, they've been most supportive. But I wouldn't put it down to any one person. It's a cliche to say it's a team effort, but it really is. You couldn't do it without the owners. You can do it without the trainers. You can do it without the blacksmith. You can do it without the grooms. You know, you literally couldn't do it without all these people. Right down to someone who mends the fences. You know, you can't do it unless the whole thing is working.
Yeah.
You know, someone who mends a lorry. You can't, unless the whole operation is working properly, you can't produce the end result. And so the end result is the product of everybody.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. And
So that's a bit of a cop out, really, but
no, I don't think it's a
That is
cop
a-
out. I think
that is
that's
honest.
a great, honest reply. Yeah.
It's very true. There's a saying, isn't there? I'm probably butchering it. Something along the lines of "It takes a village to raise a child," something like that.
Yeah,
It's,
quite exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Jonty. It's been absolutely fascinating. We loved your stories and your journey and your openness and just your honesty with the things that you've been through and the way you've had to rebuild your life. It's just incredible. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
There's only one more message, actually, if people are still listening.
They are.
I don't want to sound too corny, but it's not over yet.
Good one. Absolutely. Still moving forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jonty.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. I've certainly learned an awful lot. I've got some great tips. And the questions led to that. So phenomenal questions actually from our audience tonight as well. Yeah, really good. Really good. So a huge thank you to yourself, Jonty, and that beautiful picture there. We thought we would end with that beautiful picture. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. And just very briefly again, to everybody watching, we just want to say there's another couple of webinars coming up soon. We have them running all the way through the autumn and the winter. And the next two are firstly Dr. Russell McKechnie-Guire. He's a biomechanics specialist. He's going to talk about what influence do you have as a rider.
I'm going to interrupt a minute there. Sorry, he's absolutely fascinating. So listen to that one.
Yeah,
he's great, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's fascinating. He's really bright. He's so good at what he does, and he's a really lovely person as well. So for all of those reasons,
and massively compassionate about horses as well. Love that.
Yeah, very much so. And then on the 7th of October, now talking about marathons, Jonty, Mary King has decided to run a marathon. It's on her bucket list. Yeah, I know.
You can run with her.
Yeah. She's like, I needed a new goal. So this is the latest one for her. So yes, on the 3rd of October, she'll be running the London Marathon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, on the 3rd she'll be running the marathon, and then 4 days later, I think in some comfy slippers and sitting down, she will be doing a webinar for the Horse Tribe. And 100% of the profits from that will go to Great Ormond Street. That's the charity that she's chosen to run for at the London Marathon. So do join us for both of those and many more to come. So thank you again, Jonty. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. Yeah, and we'll see you again soon.
Cool.
Thanks everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night. Bye.